Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Anthony.
And this is Words and Numbers. Now, before I ask that question that I always ask and never get a good answer to anyway, we should take a minute to say thank you to our Patreon supporters.
Yeah, absolutely. They have been with us since we started back in whenever it was. And they're the people who keep us going.
Yeah, people don't realize there are expenses with a podcast, and we can't really cover them. So it makes everything else possible. So thank you so much, and tell all your friends.
Now, you want to say something about what we're going to be doing for our Patreon sponsors now that everybody's getting video?
Yeah, I guess now's the time. We talked yesterday, I guess it was, about doing once or twice weekly meetup on the Patreon website, which apparently has this technology woven in. So if Ant ever gives me the login credentials, I will start showing up there a couple of times a week, and maybe Ant can show up from time to time as well when his busy schedule allows.
Yeah, and just have a conversation, answer questions, whatever.
Hang out. And, if you've got a question but don't want to show up in person, email it to us, whatever you like.
Yeah, absolutely. But our intent here is to keep giving some premium content to our Patreon subscribers, which in the past has always been these videos. We just turn the camera on as we're recording. Now the fly in the ointment is that everybody's getting the video.
Yeah, and we should also say, if there's something that you want that you think would be possible, tell us. We might do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ant, what's new and exciting in your world this week?
A listener, John in Virginia, who did not give his last name, says an example people often give of corporate malfeasance is stock buybacks. In fact, people tend to mention this example with no explanation at all, as if it is self-evident that something immoral has taken place. Can you explain what exactly a corporate stock buyback is and why people distrust them so much? Is it done with malintent, or are people misunderstanding?
Well, they're misunderstanding. I can answer the first part of that question, but I really can't answer the second part.
Go for it.
All right. Stock buybacks happen when a corporation finds itself flush with cash, and it thinks, they're the people who run the thing, thinks that the stocks are low priced, that they're not selling right this second for what insiders think they're worth. So they buy them back, which makes every existing share worth more.
Yeah, and let me add a note to that, because my guess is people have the misconception that a stock buyback means that you are required to hand in your stock to the corporation. That is not the case. No,
not at all.
I would imagine there are probably some exotic versions of stock that come with buyback, required buyback options, and they'd be called a call option. But that's if those things do indeed exist, they're a small fraction of the stocks that are out there. When we talk about stocks, we're talking generally about things that are, when you buy it, it's yours. No one can force you to give it back. So what the company's doing is, and you're exactly right, is the company looks around, it's flush with cash, it looks around and asks the same question any responsible company would ask: where are we best able to invest our money? And sometimes the answer is in the very company that we're running.
And stocks behave just like dollars. When there are more of them, when the government makes more dollars, they're all worth less.
Right.
Well, when there are more shares floating around, they're definitionally all worth less. And if the company looks and buys them all back, well, now they're all worth more.
Yeah. Now, it's not going to buy them all back. When actually that does happen from time to time. It's called going private. Yeah.
It does happen, but it's very rare. We're talking about like Coca-Cola right now, right? Things like this.
Right. And now that I say this, and we're wandering outside my wheelhouse, but I could see that it's possible that if a company went private, and the last one that I'm aware of that did was Dell Computer, maybe a decade ago. They were publicly traded. You could buy their stock in a stock market. and Dell went private. And my guess is, I'm just guessing, so don't quote me, is that the board of directors get together, they have a stockholders meeting, and everybody votes, and they say, should we go private? That is, we'll no longer be listed on the stock exchange. And if the stockholders vote yes, then there may well be something required there. Now, you'd get money back for your stock, but I'm wandering way out. Yeah.
Usually at quite a premium.
But here's the thing.
It has to be worth it to the shareholders.
Oh, yeah. That's the only reason the shareholders would vote for it, is because it's worth it to them. So this is a voluntary thing. The company goes out onto the stock exchange just like anybody else would do it. It offers, and if you like the offer, you're free to sell your stock back to the company. If not, don't. You keep it. But here's the interesting thing that I think people miss. That is, if we were to prohibit stock buybacks, so suppose we decide this is malfeasance, we're going to have a law against it, there's an important piece of information we're now preventing from getting to the marketplace.
That's right.
I mean,
Because when Coca-Cola starts buying back their stock, I look at it too.
Yeah, and who better than Coca-Cola is in a position to know what the value of that stock really should be? And if Coke thinks it's great and starts buying, I want to know that.
I'm going to at least take a much longer look. And what I would like to know, and what I honestly have no earthly idea, why do people think this is a bad thing?
I don't know. It just seems, James, anymore someone says a corporation does X and it's evil because it's a corporation.
By definition. Yeah, maybe.
And I think John is right. People talk about this, and I've heard them talk about other things with regard to corporations as if it's just true without any explanation. And I see this so often. You see it in the movies all the time. You talk about the central character is the evil corporation, and say the corporation is doing X, whatever X is. Nobody.
It's going to kill everyone.
Right,
the evil corporation, but then they have no customers.
Right, yeah. Nobody stops to ask the question, does it make sense for the corporation to do this?
Anyway, I want to talk about a different corporation, if you don't mind, and it's the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. I don't think we've ever mentioned PBS on this podcast.
We haven't, but coincidentally, I was reading an article by someone who had worked for them for like 25 years. Is this where you're going?
Right. I am not. I'm going with the United States government, Congress, and President Trump defunding them.
Oh,
long a Republican goal. Right? I remember people talking about this back in the 1980s. And in the current rescissions package, PBS and NPR are named specifically. I think they're going to lose $1 billion or $2 billion. They're going to lose a significant amount of money. And needless to say, they came out swinging, saying this is a very, very valuable service to many Americans who don't get their news any other way. And I started scratching my head trying to figure out who the hell that could possibly be.
Right.
And I remembered the sage words of Homer Simpson back in the finest Simpsons episode there ever was, Missionary Impossible, who said, and I quote, "It's an honor to give $10,000, especially now when the rich mosaic of cable programming has made public television so very, very unnecessary."
Right.
Look, if PBS is so valuable, and I'll cheerfully admit, I've said many times that I consume PBS product daily.
Mm-hmm.
Every day I wake up, I listen to Up First. It's what I do first. And I happen to love it. If PBS is adding value, then the market should provide all the money that PBS needs.
Right.
If PBS cannot get from the market the money it needs to operate, but instead requires taxation, it's definitionally not valuable.
Yep.
Definitionally.
And you cannot make any arguments here about, well, the market wouldn't provide this. The counterexamples, there are tens of thousands in all of the cable shows, the for-profit radio shows. There's plenty of money to be made there.
Yeah, there is. We'd like to make it. If anybody out there knows how lowly podcasters like us might turn a profit, but this is not a complicated thing,
Hmm.
and PBS wants you not to look here, but to look over here. It's a beautiful sleight of hand that they're up to, and it's the same nonsense they've been doing for decades.
Well,
And I think it's time for PBS to, in fact, go private.
Well, this ties in with the article that I just ran across it an hour before we were talking by, I forget the guy's first name. His last name was Berliner.
Yeah, it was a great article.
Yeah, worked for 25 years for NPR, and he said the thing changed when he started there. He said, of course, most of the people there were left leaning, but they gave what he, in his opinion, balanced coverage, balanced news. He said that changed at some point over those decades. And you could see the change in all of the news. At the same time that we moved away from, in the old days, Walter Cronkite, who just reported the news, to
mostly
to the subsequent generations that were intent on telling us how we should think about the news.
Right. The news became more of a product than a public service on the part of
Right.
the networks. And look, it was only a public service on the networks because Congress said it had to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, there's a lot of fingers in this pie, and I don't really like any of them as it comes down. But, as the mainstream news lurched left, and I mean it lurched left, that opened the door for Fox News.
Right.
There was a space in the market for it. Now, I don't like Fox News any more than I like MSNBC, but I generally like that they both exist, at least in theory.
Yeah, it would be nice to have middle of the road balanced, but absent that, I'll take two extremes. Better than one extreme.
That's exactly where I land on this as well, which, of course, brings us to the foolishness of the week. I usually ask if you have a guess.
Well, this week I do.
Well, you're going to be wrong, but go ahead. No, I know you're going to be wrong because it's about somebody you've never heard of.
Okay, no, my wife was reading an article to me today, something about President Trump as he's going off on Jerome Powell, the chair of the Fed.
Yeah, going to fire him.
Said something to the effect of, "What idiot hired him?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of a funny answer to that question, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, if he was being tongue-in-cheek, that actually is quite funny. If not, it's incredibly sad. He hired Jerome Powell.
Yeah, that's not the answer, and I want to go easy on President Trump because of something we're going to talk about in the main episode. I think something good has happened to at least some degree, and we always go where the data takes us, not where our emotions are. So he gets a free pass from me on the foolishness this week. Instead, we go to a rock star and legitimate guitar hero. Most people don't realize that about him. Steve Miller. Have you heard of Steve Miller?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Name one song that Steve Miller has wrote or
Well,
performed.
that I can't do.
Yeah, okay. Steve Miller had a summer tour scheduled. I believe it was 28 tour dates, which he canceled because he said, it's not worth the risk.
What risk?
Yeah, I was hoping you'd ask. The risk of natural disasters.
Where is he playing?
Nowhere that there's going to be natural disasters. It was a U.S. tour. And he thinks that floods and earthquakes and the like are so probable that he couldn't put himself, his fans, and the theaters at risk.
Wow. Someone's been watching too much news.
I'm telling you, that's the dumbest thing I've heard all day. Steve Miller, cut it out. Cut it out. I hope that this is all a lie and they're canceling because ticket sales have been soft.
Ah, there we go.
I hope that's the right answer, because the answer given is so horrifically stupid that I don't know what else to say about it.
We're happy to announce that Words and Numbers is now part of the CiVL network. CiVL is a new streaming platform dedicated to upgrading civilization by exploring better ways for people to organize, innovate, and thrive. At CiVL, we believe that societies flourish when their members uphold the civil equality of all people and engage with one another through cooperation. CiVL seeks great minds from around the world to share bold ideas for fostering healthy, dynamic societies. By creating space for honest disagreement among people who share a commitment to building a better future, CiVL offers a refreshing alternative to divisive punditry and insular echo chambers. Words and Numbers will remain freely available, but those who subscribe to CiVL will gain access to exclusive content, including our regular live streams. CiVL members also get access to conversations with many remarkable people who work to build a better society. For more information and to subscribe, visit civil.com, that's CIVL.com, and use the code Words and Numbers, that's one word, for 50% off an annual subscription. Your support helps us continue to advocate for a more civil society.
Anyway, this brings us to the thing I teased just a minute ago. Say it ain't so, Ant. We're going to say some nice things about the Trump administration. Can that possibly be right?
Well, you are. I'm going to say some neutral things.
Well, you figured out a very small number, so we're going to say nice things to the degree of, what's the number?
3 billion?
No, the little tiny number.
That
you needed a spreadsheet to calculate.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I had it here, and did I calculate it? Equals that divided by that. See, there's so many zeros in this thing.
This is the sound of Anthony's ultimate happiness to those of you listening.
That's right. It is wonderful.
Tapping away, saying divided by this times that.
It's 8, let's see, tens, hundreds, thousands. 8 thousandths of 1%.
All right, so we've got 8 thousandths of 1% good news.
Yes.
Hey, it's better than bad news. I mean, come on. Let's give him some credit. In June of 2025, last month, the United States federal government had a surplus.
I've heard people talking about this, and I kind of just ignored it for various reasons I'll tell you in a moment. But James wanted to do an episode on it, so I went and looked up the number, and lo and behold, the debt did indeed. And remember, the debt is, forget about the surplus, the official surplus numbers. The gold standard here is the debt. Did the debt go up? Did it go down?
This is the only number that matters.
Yeah.
And this is how you know Bill Clinton did not have a surplus.
Right.
That went up every year of not only his presidency, but every presidency back to Eisenhower.
Yeah, and the reason, we'll just take a sidestep for a moment, the reason we're having this conversation is because the official surplus numbers can be maybe fudged is too strong of a word. They can be massaged. You can move money from here to there and call it a revenue or what have you. What is black and white, you cannot mess with it, is the debt number. Because the government has to go to the market to get that. There's no internal accounting there.
And it went down, if only infinitesimally.
It did. From June 1 to June 30, went down by $3 billion.
It's not nothing.
Well, yeah, I mean, people are going to point to that and say, look, $3 billion, that's a huge number. But we'll go back to the small number I told you.
Yeah, but before you do, let's give the devil his due here. If that happened every month for a year, that would be great news.
Well, it would still be kind of mediocre news. If it happened,
look, the debt wouldn't go down much, but we wouldn't add anything to it. We'd be subtracting.
Yes, that's true. You would be subtracting, which unto itself is quite a feat.
But for the interest, which would dwarf the $3 billion monthly intake.
There's that. Well, all right. So you want some context. Let me give you some context. $3 billion in debt reduction over the course of 30 days. The government spends $3 billion every 15 minutes.
Right.
So it took the government a month to save 15 minutes worth of money.
You are such a spoil sport. You just want to ruin everything. So go ahead, continue to ruin things.
But it's the number is the $3 billion in savings is eight. I have to count the zeros again. 10,000. 8/10,000ths of 1% of the debt.
Right. But as a percentage of the budget, it's much better.
Yeah, it is. Maybe it probably breaks 0.1% for the budget as a whole. But here's the thing, because when people first said this, I just ignored it. And then it suddenly became a thing when I wasn't paying attention. The reason I ignored it is because monthly figures when it comes to government spending and government tax revenue are pretty irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It's like saying on the Friday of the week that you get paid, look at how much money I made. Well, okay, but that's because it was Friday. It was payday. Stretch that out over 2 weeks and it doesn't look that great anymore.
I haven't had a beer all week.
Right, yeah, right, exactly. It's Sunday at 9 a.m.
Yeah, then Friday night comes and everything's a little different. But look, I take your point, but look, it's not, there were two things that kind of made the rounds in my sweep of attention this week, and the other one was legitimately stupid. It was a bunch of people on the MAGA right saying that inflation was 0% in June.
Oh, my Lord, no. No, inflation actually ticked up in June.
A touch. What their misunderstanding came because the number for June and May were so close, it looked the same to them, which means zero.
Ah, I see. Right.
It's people who don't know basic math. It's not even algebra that we're talking about here.
Yeah, and you're talking about 1 month. The movement in the price index over 1 month, of course, is going to be small. It's 1 month. But to understand it in context, you got to multiply it by 12.
Yeah, and they were claiming 0%. I looked into it pretty significantly. It looks like it's about 2.7.
But here's the thing that caused me at first glance to ignore this whole thing. This business about the surplus first came to my attention when somebody said, oh, look, this is evidence that the tariffs are generating lots of revenue because we got a surplus. To which I responded, hang on, you're conflating two completely different things. The surplus is revenue minus spending. The tariffs are only impacting revenue. So if you want to know what effect did tariffs have, don't look at the surplus. It's not going to tell you anything. You got to look at revenues.
Right, but revenues did increase because of the tariffs.
Well,
$100-something billion, wasn't it?
I think it was 27 billion versus the year before it was 6. So it's like a 21 billion year-over-year change. So June was 21 billion more than June of last year was. That's right. Tariff revenue.
It shouldn't come as a surprise that a tax increase, which is what a tariff is, generates revenue.
Yeah, it does generate revenue. So you've got that. But here's the problem. We're only looking at a portion of the pie. We haven't seen yet the effect on personal income, on corporate income. And both of those things, they're going to lag. So it's going to take them a little bit longer to come in. But when they do come in, they're going to be lower because of the drag that the tariff puts on the economy.
Right. And any other thing that puts a drag on the economy, right? It gets very complicated to just pull out one thing and say, there's your difference maker.
Right. And furthermore, what are conservatives doing here? They were constantly pillaring liberals. I mean, constantly for the past 30 years on this same fallacy. You can't. This
is from the 1960s forward.
Right. Raising tax rates generally is not going to increase revenue. If you're lucky, revenue will be the same. If you're unlucky, revenue is going to decline because your spiking of the taxes is going to slow down the economy.
Right. We've talked about this a number of times. 18%, that's what the government collects no matter what.
Yep. No matter what, it's 18%
doesn't matter who's president,
economy.
doesn't matter what Doesn't matter what party has control of Congress. It's going to collect about 18%. And people are going to find ways to make sure that keeps right on happening.
Yeah. Yeah, because people alter their behavior.
That's right. And then the government has a choice to make, although it doesn't perceive it in this manner. Do we want 18% of a lot, or do we want 18% of less than a lot?
Yeah, and somehow politicians keep coming down on the side of 18% of less than a lot.
Less than a lot. And I want to go back to what you were just saying a minute ago and make it even worse, because the Republicans for decades have been telling us that we need to cut taxes.
Right. Yes.
That was their mantra. How did we end up here where we've got the big, beautiful bill, insert laughter here, and tariffs, and nobody's even flinching? Where did the small government conservatives go? I can't find a one. Well, that's not exactly right. I think I can find a couple. But you take the point. They're an endangered species.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate, but I'm seeing too much on the right of what I saw too much of on the left, which is whatever my guy's doing is going to work because he's my guy.
And it's great.
Yep.
And that's a dangerous way to approach anything. That's a dangerous way. Who the hell was it? It was one of those hacks. Was it Charlie Kirk? I believe it was Charlie Kirk. Who said, well, I'm not going to talk about the Epstein thing anymore because my friends in government tell me X. First off, if you have friends in government, what's wrong with you? Second off, if you don't mistrust everyone in power, you're not seeing the picture correctly.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what your people say. And the Epstein files are kind of the perfect example, right? And I'm agnostic on the whole thing. I'm sure that there are going to be all kinds of people implicated if and when this ever comes to light. And I'm sure those people are leaning all over everybody who has physical control of that information. Because what else would they do? What else would they do? But to say out loud that, oh, my guy says it's no big deal. Well, Trump ran on making these public.
Right.
Now he claims that Barack Obama and Joe Biden made these files up. Somehow it's Biden's fault again.
Words and Numbers is a CiVL original podcast. James and I work with CiVL to advance their mission of upgrading civilization by exploring ideas that promote civic equality and cooperation. We believe that the most pressing issues humans face, war, poverty, debt, tribalism, arise from coercive institutions that bring out the worst in us. We're working with CiVL to rethink how people can employ voluntary solutions to these and other problems. We invite you to explore CiVL's new platform at civil.com. That's CIVL.com. It's funny how it's become kind of trite to make comparisons to 1984, but this was the thing in 1984 of whoever's in power, the party in power switches, and all of a sudden you just pretend that whatever arguments you were making before don't apply anymore. The other guy's arguments now apply.
Well, it's an interesting comparison because in 1984, there's only one party.
You're right.
Kind of like we have now.
Yeah.
Except we call them by different names. They behave very much the same. But the party would say, no, that never happened. We've always been at war with Eurasia.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's saying, well, all right. Meanwhile, the signs about the war with East Asia are still hanging on the walls. Right, but don't worry about it.
Right.
Kind of like when Trump supporters say, well, he's playing 5-dimensional chess. They add a new number every year. Next year it'll be 6-dimensional. No, he's not. He's not. It's just that simple.
You raised...
Jeez, we started by trying to give him some credit here, and look where we are.
We both got riled up. You said something a moment ago that's got me thinking. So here's the background. We've done, you and I have talked about this a lot, that if you look historically at, over time, this goes back to the mid 1940s. Look at income taxes, look at corporate capital gains taxes, look at corporate taxes, look at estate taxes, every kind of tax the federal government applies. Look at periods when it taxes at high rates, periods when it taxes at low rates, and all the combinations. And the same answer keeps coming out over and over and over again, which is the government collects a total of 18% of the economy as tax revenue. It does fluctuate a bit, but it doesn't fluctuate with the tax rates or with what you're taxing. It's 18% plus or minus a little bit of noise.
And it doesn't fluctuate more than plus or minus 2 points.
Right, yeah. Yeah, at the maximum, you're down to 16 or up to 20, but it's well, pretty horizontal at that 18%. So here's my question. We've had enough of a track record here. It's got to be obvious to everybody who deals with taxation that the answer is 18%. If that's the answer, why raise taxes? Why raise tax rates, knowing that you're going to get 18% regardless? In fact, you raise tax rates, you slow the economy, so you get 18% of a smaller pie. It seems to be the case that if you want to increase government revenue, it's very clear, cut tax rates, and you'll get 80% of a bigger pie. Now, here's my question.
I'm already shaking my head.
I'm trying to figure out
already shaking my head.
What would go on? What would be the motivation here? And the only answer I can come to is power. That by raising the tax rates, I have more power now because I can dole out favors, not only in the form of money, but also in the form of tax relief.
It's much worse than that, too, because half of the equation is not taxing your friends, which means you get to tax people who are not your friends even more. And I'm going to bring us all the way back to Plato's Republic, because it's not always about economics around here. The question is, what is justice? The very first answer in that book is helping friends and harming enemies. Nothing ever changes. That was 3,000 years ago, for God's sake. And you see it everywhere you look right this second. Now, it turns out that's not the Platonic answer. It's just the first answer. And there's something very right about it. But it's not complete and it's not correct. And yet, politicians don't care about being right. They care about appearing to be right.
Yeah.
Why else would they go on TV every weekend and spew a bunch of talking points? Why do we even have the phrase talking points? If we had honest politicians, they would go and tell the truth.
Right.
Talking points. This is just ridiculous.
And to anyone who would push back on you, I say, look, give me two politicians who are identical in every way, except one. The first politician is concerned with being right. The second politician is concerned with being elected. The second politician is going to win. And that, on average, is who you're going to have in your Congress. The guys whose primary goal it is to win elections.
That's how you get Michelle Taylor Greene on one side and Chuck Schumer on the other.
Yeah. It's why you have one Ron Paul over the course of 50 years.
Those two fools are allergic to the truth. It's so bad. And yet that's what we now expect. And you get the politics you deserve.
I was going to go there next. It's not the politicians who are to blame. It's the voters.
Everybody who sends their money in or pays attention to them or repeats their talking points, take your pick. It's all of it.
Right. If we're not concerned with being right, they've got no incentive to be concerned with it.
No. And most people are definitely not concerned with being right. They just want to be part of a tribe. It's sad, but I understand. I don't know what else to say about it. Because now, of course, we get to so what?
The so what? Yes. So let's go back to where we started. It is the case that that the government had a $3 billion surplus in June. No question about that. Now, I claim that A, it's so small as to be almost irrelevant. Actually, it is irrelevant. B, it's only 1 month, so it's really not meaningful. In fact, I would say the smallest budgetary time length that is meaningful is a quarter. And even then, it's kind of dicey.
Yeah. But I'm going to look next month to see what happens.
Yeah.
It's interesting, right? Can they do it 2 months in a row? Because that's really something.
Hey,
If they do it 3 months in a row, that's a quarter.
if they can. Look, it could be the case that we're wrong. It could be the case I'm wrong, that raising tariffs is actually going to generate revenue. It's going to it's not going to be too much of a drag on the economy. I don't think that's the case, but it might be, and I'm interested to watch the data and see what happens. And let that be the so what. Before you repeat something that you hear, go look at the numbers and see if it's actually the case. See if it's meaningful.
And I'll follow right along. If it turns out that we end up with 3 months in a row, a quarter, where we show surpluses, I will be nothing but happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do I think it's going to happen? Not in a million years.
Mm-hmm.
Would I be happy to be wrong? Immensely.
Yep. Get Words and Numbers on CiVL.com and on CiVL's TV and mobile apps. Regular episodes are free. Sign up for an annual membership to support our show and for access to member-exclusive content.